something, I can just use your flow.
100%.
Yeah.
All right. And so we are currently recording. And so I am going to leave it just on this one instead of going into full presentation mode. I think it's easier that way.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to go that. Awesome. So to get started, this is my presentation from WitDevs, which is also recorded, but I am going to do it separate for you so that we can go back and forth and ask some questions. And I want to start with what is flow. So there is a lot that is out there in Salesforce for automation, and it ranges from everything from workflow rules to triggers, process builder, and flow.
Yeah.
So the very first thing that Salesforce came out with you could use to automate your org was workflow rules. Workflow rules allow you to update fields, create tasks, send email alerts, and most importantly, workflow rules give you the special ability to do an outbound message.
Yeah.
This is something that is somewhat unique to workflow rules, but when Flow came out, Flow also gives you this functionality as well declaratively, which is amazing. The next thing that Salesforce came out with back in 2008 was the ability to put code into your org.
Yeah.
I remember that it came out in 2008 because it was in 2008 that I started working with Salesforce at Salesforce. And that was when code became something that you could actually put into your org by yourself.
Right.
That was huge. Before that, you could be a partner that created packages, but you actually couldn't code in your org on your own before that. All those years of Salesforce from 1999 all the way up to 2008, you actually couldn't put code into your own org. The only option you had were workflow rules. Then there was a good chunk of time that went by, and it was actually another milestone for why I remember this. I was working at DocuSign, and I had recently started coding. I was in that admin developer stage, where I knew a little bit of code, quote unquote, just enough to be dangerous, as they say, when what they call visual workflow or visual flow, aka
Visual
flow
flow
came out.
Yeah.
And it was so exciting. Now, back then, Flow first came out where you were able to launch it in a few different ways.
Yeah.
You could launch it with either a button, or back then you could launch it with what they called a flow trigger, which was a workflow rule. Or you could launch it with code. Since then, flow triggers being launched with a workflow rule have been removed because they invented process builder. If you have them in your org, they can still be used, but they're no longer something you can configure. But man, let me tell you, visual flow was so exciting. Oh my goodness. The one thing that I learned with visual flow right away was that I was one hella dangerous developer. It showed me so many best practices that I had been missing in my code. But it was really, really remarkable. I actually ended up taking a break from coding for a while because of visual flow.
And because it's making the job easier.
No, not because it was making the job easier, but so that I could learn more best practices because I had realized what I was doing wrong. It was so cool to be able to see those best practices in action. So I actually did a presentation last year at Forcelandia called How to Use Flow to Become a Better Developer. A lot of developers do not like Flow.
Because they don't know how to use it. I agree with you.
I disagree. Nope, not at all. Not at all. Developers have an advantage in Flow because you cannot think like an admin. You need to think like a developer. Flow is a very, very dangerous tool. You are like Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. And one of the reasons why so many orgs get tangled up is because people build flows thinking like an admin, but you cannot do that. You have to build a flow thinking like a developer. Flows
what about a person like me who doesn't know how a developer thinks?
Which is why it's a great tool to help you learn how to think differently and to learn new best practices for within your org.
How would you as a developer would think about flow when you're creating it versus an admin?
So we're going to get into all of that. We will get there. You're jumping ahead.
Sorry. Just curious.
So flow, the way that it is set up is flow is giving you all of the power of Apex visually.
Right.
What you are doing is you are writing code with a UI.
Right.
So what you have to do is you have to think as if you are writing code with the UI. You have to put in all of your catches. You have to put in all of your null checks. You have to think about the fact that you can't have a loop within a loop. You have to make sure to declare everything in advance. You are working with things such as S objects. We're going to get to what those are. Yeah. You have to make sure that you have, a fault message. You have to have an error message. You have to be able to look at your decisions, which are like your if statements. So all of these different things that you are doing is just making code visual. Unlike working with Process Builder, where you only have one possible path to go down, or a workflow rule where everything is A does B.
Yes.
Flow gives you full opportunity to deal with anything in your org. In addition, Flow is also giving you the ability to not just insert, not just update or upsert, but you're also given the ability to delete. That option to delete makes Flow so much more dangerous. And I would say one of the things that developers dislike the most about Flow is the fact that it is putting that much power into anybody's hands, and people look at it because it has a UI as if it is easy, and if it is something that can be done with just a click of a button, to do any type of update, any type of change, any type of automation. That is not true. Flow needs to be carefully considered. Flow needs to be carefully reviewed. Flows need to go through a code review process. Flow also needs to be something that you have to consider in your automation on an object. Similar to Process Builder, there should only be one per object if it is something that is kicking you off automatically. Right. You should not have multiple flows per object that are kicked off automatically. There should be one. Just like there should always be one Process Builder per object. And one trigger per object.
Right, okay.
And if you are putting a trigger on an object, you need to carefully consider if you should ever put a flow on that object or a Process Builder on that object. You should not be mixing your automation all the time. There are some circumstances in which it's okay, but it shouldn't be something that you are doing on a regular basis.
Right.
So Flow is automation, but it's extremely powerful automation. It is a visual view of code, and it is allowing you to code with a UI.
Yeah.
So what is Flow? It's totally awesome stuff. It gives you the power of Spider-Man, but you gotta be careful.
It's super powerful.
So what actually makes up Flow? There's a lot to Flow. And this is where I am going to move this stupid Zoom bar that always seems to be right where I want to click. So there are a few different things that make Flow up. And I'm going to actually jump back and forth between the org here. So I'm going to wake up my tab in a minute. But first I want to talk about these, and I've got slides that go into them too. And we've got a little extra time compared to my presentation. So let's go into these a little bit. So there are a couple of different parts. Number one is your palette. The palette is the square that you drag everything onto. So that is pretty much just the surface that you drop all your little, your squares, your diamonds, that you draw your lines across. That is where your start button sits in the beginning.
So basically that white background is called palette, right?
Correct, yeah. The surface that you're working on, that white background, that's your palette.
Got it. Love it.
You have your elements, your resources, your connections, your actions, and your components. Right. Let's dig into those one at a time.
Yep.
All right, so you have your connectors. There are a few different types of connectors, but your connectors are the lines that you draw in between each of your different resources.
Right.
There are a few different types of connectors involved in Flow, and you can tell what they are based on how they look.
Right.
So first you have your unlabeled connectors. What these do is these are identifying what comes next in your flow. So if you're going from a get record to a decision, you're going to use an unlabeled connector.
Sorry.
Next up,
can you say that again? If I'm going from?
If you're going to go from like a get record to a decision, and we'll go into what those are.
Right.
You'll use an unlabeled connector. The next one is a decision outcome. You can recognize a decision outcome because it's going to have whatever you label as the name of that decision outcome written on it. So I'm actually going to jump into our little org here.
Decision.
And yeah, I'm going to add that so I don't lose it. All right. Let's go into our process automation.
Right.
And go into flows. And so you'll notice that there are a few different flows in here. Let's go with let's go with our login flow. All right. So you'll notice here I have a decision.
Right.
I'm going to open up that decision. This one is called yes, the user has already accepted T's and C's.
Yes.
And you'll notice that here I have renamed my default outcome. I recommend you always rename your default outcome. And we'll talk about this more. We'll actually have a whole session where we talk about debugging flows after we build one.
Nice.
But one thing that is extremely important is that you rename these. And the reason why is because of when you're debugging.
Yeah.
Your debug logs give you so much information. And the best way to get the most out of that information is to make what you write in your flow something that you understand.
Of course.
And this actual text written right here, what's written with the API names, I love to keep my underscores in there. For some reason, I know people that like to actually go in and edit out their underscores.
Yeah.
The only thing that they are doing is making it harder to read in the debug log.
Right. So
keep the underscores. But because this is what you actually see, literally written in the debug log is what it says in the API names. You will see, did the user accept T's and C's? And you will see, yes, user already accepted T's and C's. It's so much easier to read when you can actually read it with spaces, and by spaces, the underscores. When it's all smushed together, it gets hard to read.
Yep, true.
But you'll see here, the user has not accepted T's and C's. And you'll see here, written right on there, it says the user has not yet accepted T's and C's.
Right.
So that is where you have a decision outcome. You also have a pause configuration label. So pauses are pretty cool. A pause allows you to have something wait. So you know how like in a either a scheduled workflow rule, let's say you want something to happen 5 days later.
Okay, all right.
So that would be a situation in which you use a pause in your flow.
Oh.
So you can put a pause in and say either wait X number of days, or you can say wait for this to happen to a record, wait for somebody to update a field to this value. All sorts of different ways that you can use a pause. Flows are so much more powerful. You don't have to just wait for a number of days or minutes or hours. You can wait for an actual action to happen. So when that happens,
what's the use case of this? If I want to, like, why would I want to pause a flow?
so either if you want to wait X number of days to complete to do another action. So let's say you want to wait, if something happens 5 days later and a case still hasn't been escalated, or a case still hasn't been updated to a different owner, you want to escalate it.
Right, okay. Got
And
it.
in that case, you want to update a field to escalate it, or you want to, every year, you want to update the age of somebody, but you can't use a formula because it is a field that you want to use in a different workflow, and you can't use formulas to fire a workflow.
Yep.
Yeah. Super powerful. But you'll notice that it will actually tell you when that will be happening. So it'll be like 1 day after X.
Okay.
Or you can say, 1 day before, or etc.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Have a fault. So faults, you'll notice that they're bright red. So you'll see here that I still have this little dot on my record.
Yep.
I'm going to drop another screen on here and just go error screen. All right, so now we have this error screen, right? Anytime you still have this dot, you can pull a line off of it.
Right.
I already have my next element coming off of the record. So you can only go one place after you get a record, because there's only one place to go after you get it. There's no decision. It's not like I have multiple choices.
So basically, if you try to do multiple outcomes after get, it will be a fault.
Nope. So you would choose to do a fault because let's say you got 0 records. If you have 0 records that are found, you would go to a fault screen to say, hey, nothing was found here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Good.
Then the next thing you have is inside of a loop.
Right.
Loops are a lot of fun. They're very, very powerful. So loops relate to something called a collection. When you do a get record, you have 2 choices. We're going to open that back up.
Right.
So you can either find just the first record, or you can grab all of the records.
Right.
If you are looking for something that includes this record's ID, you will only find one record, because there is only one record that will ever have that ID for that record.
Right.
But let's say you are looking for all of the cases that have the status of new. There are a bunch of records that can have the case status new, right?
Correct.
And if we want to find all of them and put them all together, we're not going to have an S object variable, which is what it's called when you have a single record. It's called an S object variable. Okay. Instead, what we'll have is an S object collection.
Sorry, can you repeat that again? if it's a single
If
object?
it's a single record, it's called an S object variable.
Sorry, it's single record, right?
Single record is an S object variable.
S object variable. And if it's multiple records, then it's collection.
S object collection.
Records. Okay, great. Go on.
And so what you want to do now is, so we've got this S object collection. We have every single case that has a status of new. What we want to do with these cases that have a status of new is we want to go through and we want to change them all to be owned by you instead of being owned by whoever else owns them.
Right.
So in that situation, we can't just update a collection. We have to update them one by one.
Right.
So what we would do is we would go into a loop. So we have our collection. So you would go in, you drop this loop down. You would drop in your collection.
Right.
And then you would go into you take the collection and you take them out one at a time.
Right.
And by taking them out one at a time, you then go in and within that loop, you assign each record one at a time that new owner value of Nisha. Then you have to go back and continue in that loop, that circle, until you finish and assigning them all that new owner. And then you drop them back into the collection and then you exit out.
Right.
And so that is where, let's go back. You have a for each item, and it actually says for each item on it, which is where you're identifying first what you're doing for each item in the loop. And then at the end of the loop, you drag a line down and say, after the loop, this is what I want to do. And it actually makes a cute little circle for what you're doing in there.
Okay.
On your palette. And we'll end up building one of those so you can see how they work.
Great.
It'll probably be like our second flow. Our first one will be a nice easy one, and then the second one we'll build a pretty loop.
Cool. After lesson.
Yeah. All right? So those are your different types of connectors. And two of them go together as a loop. One of them is your bright red fault.
Right.
You've got your pause. You've got your decision. And then you've just got the line that says, this is what's next. This is what's next. This is what's next.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Elements.
So elements take up a huge chunk of the stuff that's involved. Not the biggest one, but a big one. All right. So your elements are.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Will I be able to get a copy of this presentation?
I shared this presentation with you already. You should be able to see it in your drive.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Go over and read and understand over and over.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. So elements are the things that are on the side here in your
okay. Data, logic, interactions. Okay.
Yeah. So these are your creating of records. This is where you're gonna make a record. It's going to be your updating records. It's going to be when you get records. And when you query getting records, it's just querying them. It's going to be your delete. So it's all those actions that you do.
Right.
It's going to be your assignment, which is yet another action. Assignments is taking a value and assigning it to another place. It's going to be your decision, where you look at a value that exists on either a variable or on a field, and you say, is it this or is it that? Which is exactly what we are doing right here.
Cool.
Is this value? Did the user sign the terms and conditions or no? Do we have one?
Right.
And then there's another one right here. Did the
Mhm.
user select
Mhm.
accept terms and conditions true, or did they accept terms and conditions false?
Right.
So it can be a field value on a
Right.
record,
Mhm.
or it can be a field value on a screen. Because this one is actually looking at right here where they can select it.
So a field value on a record or a field value on a screen?
Yeah, so a decision can look anywhere. It doesn't have to look at a specific place. A decision can look at anything.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Then you have your loop,
Mm-hmm.
which we already talked about.
Yeah.
You have the screen itself,
Mm-hmm.
which you've seen flows where you have a screen.
Mm-hmm.
And you have these actions. So
Right.
actions are pretty cool. They
Mm.
have a huge range of what they can be.
Right.
So you'll notice here there's a giant list of what actions are.
Yeah.
Anything from being an actual global action, such
Mm-hmm.
as, create a lead, create a case.
Send an email.
Yeah.
Log a
All the
call.
way down to custom notifications.
Mm.
They can also be custom actions, such
Okay.
as a redirect at the end of a flow to send you to the record you just made.
Mm.
So they can be something custom.
Mm.
And then, see here, we also have and then we have your subflow, which is where you launch another flow from your flow.
So
So,
it's
yeah.
creating a flow, and then you create that, you merge that flow into the primary flow.
So you start another flow at the within your flow. So you
Oh,
can start another flow inside your flow, and you can either
right.
go back to this one, or you can
Mm-hmm.
end with your other one. A subflow
So,
is just launching another flow.
okay. I think you just answered my question. Thank you.
Yeah. So that is what your elements are. And then I'm actually going to take off this word toggle. It is a copy paste. Okay, there we go.
Fixing it.
Then you have your screen components.
Wow.
So screen components are a huge, huge list. Don't be intimidated.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to jump over and I'm just going to open up the screen. Screen components are all this stuff over here. Yeah.
Right.
These are all your screen components.
Interesting.
You'll notice it's a big list, but it's not that scary when you see it. It's just all your different field types that you can have on there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's not that scary. And you'll notice you have things like an address. And by the way, I don't know if you saw, but in summer, address is actually going to be a field type for inside Salesforce.
A custom field, right?
You can actually make a custom field that's a type of address.
I heard that one and I was jumping. I'm like, yes.
Finally, dude, we have only been asking for like 21 years for that stuff. Oh my God, about time.
Yeah, I was happy with that one as well. That was imperative.
So originally with Flow, your quote unquote screen components used to just be date, currency, checkbox, then long text area, multi-select pick list, number, pick list, and text and URL. They have since expanded to include components. And the component context, and I'll show you the difference here. When we drop a text field, you'll notice it's pretty basic. You just have your label and your default value and whether or not you want to make it required.
Right.
Now, if I go up here and I
Mhm.
drop in, let's drop on name, because it's one of my favorites. Name comes in so handy. Don't use text for name, use the name one. You'll
Okay.
notice here, you can actually see it. You have so much more that you can configure.
Mm.
Do you want to have the first name? Do you want to have the last name? Do you want a salutation? And you'll notice it shows up on the screen instead of just as a field, but as this no
Right.
preview available.
Right.
So when you are dealing with a component instead of a field, you don't actually get to see the value on the screen.
Right.
So at least not within the builder itself.
What would be the use case of a name then? Because it looks like it's more like a contact field that are
You
showing
can
up.
use it for any type of first and last name that you need to use. You can assign it to a contact, a person account, anywhere, a
Okay.
user, anywhere where you would have a first and last name. And if
Right.
you just want a first name, you can just go and erase. You would just do that and erase last name.
Right.
And if you want this to be first, last, and middle, you can go last name and
Separate.
then do middle
And
name
spaces.
like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they all would show up as separate fields on that name
They
component?
do. Yep. They all show up
Wow.
as separate fields on the name component.
Wow, look at that. Okay, this is we're flying. I'm getting excited now. Really excited.
Another really cool one is password.
Mm.
So password, even though it looks super basic,
Mm.
this field shows up as just asterisks when people type into it.
Hmm.
This is great for if you have people that need to enter like a social security number or a bank account number. I'm using this actually in a community that I'm building where people enter their bank account numbers.
Right.
So that the field, because the field is encrypted within Salesforce.
Yeah.
But when they enter it into the flow doesn't know it's going into an encrypted field.
Mm.
So, but we don't want people to be seeing that they're just typing in a bank account number. Like, what if they're sitting at a coffee shop?
Yeah.
Like,
Someone overlook it.
right? Exactly. So we're using the password field to keep that a secure field.
So this you're saying at the back end keeps whatever they're writing encrypted.
So if you're putting it
Password
into an encrypted
component.
field, it would. So my field on the back end is encrypted. It doesn't have to go into an encrypted field in Salesforce. It just keeps it asteriskified on the front.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. This is so much amazing stuff.
That's a ton of information. I'm sorry if it's overwhelming.
No, I am like getting ideas in my head and I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like I'm getting blown away with this stuff right now. So yeah, I'm way excited now. Like just pulling tricks out of up your sleeve. You can do this, do that, and I'm like, oh my God, where have I been? This is magical.
Now you'll notice that there's this whole chunk here right in the middle from review inbound or outbound all the way down to select resource available.
Yeah.
So that chunk right there is for when you use the Lightning scheduler. Lightning scheduler is so cool. And I actually have a friend who I just helped set that up last week for Liberty Mutual. I don't know if it's live on her site. Let me shoot her a text and see if it is. And maybe she can jump on our call at the end and show you. Because I don't have a Lightning scheduler flow set up in any of my personal orgs right now. Yeah, I don't know if you've used it yet, but it's amazing. But what it allows you to do is go in and schedule an appointment based on wherever you're located. And based on the times that somebody has open on their calendar that they said are okay for people to schedule from, where they can have like a phone appointment or an in-person appointment, or you know, whatever kind of appointments you decide to make available.
Is it
so
free?
that it comes with I don't know what it costs. Being a partner, I usually leave all the money to Salesforce. I'll add that to my tax here.
If it comes with maybe Service Cloud or Field Service Lightning, or is it like a whole different additional package that sits on top of anything?
Let me schedule it up.
Service resources. This sounds more like a Field Service Lightning thing. Yeah.
It's not Field Service Lightning. Nope.
No?
Nope.
Well, that's where you hear the word service resources, because that's used for the technicians and the people going out on the road. So
her people are insurance agents. They don't go out on the road. They sit in an office.
wow, this is a different, well, this sounds like a different product altogether.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's available for an extra cost. Got it.
Dang.
Right. So how do you got that in your org?
So this is the org that I'm sharing with you. So I can get this set up in our org. This probably over the next like week or two, but yeah.
Or it might be like a test pack that might have been installed.
So this is a dev org. So it's going to have a lot of stuff in it because it's just a dev org. But yeah, so I'll see about putting that together for us. But yeah, so those are just some of the fields that are available. Then next up, we have the flow operators. So this is where assignment is in this one. Then you have conditions. Conditions are just like conditions in a workflow rule. So things such as conditions where you would have if this field blank field equals X.
So basically, criteria that
criteria, should be. Yes, exactly. Yes. Conditions, criteria. And same thing with record filters. Record filters are criteria. Yeah.
What's the use case of assignments?
So assignments are where you need to, for example, just like when we talked about in the loop, where if we have that case that has the value in new, and we want the owner to now be Nisha. So we would use an assignment to assign you as the new owner. So assignments are how you assign a value to a field.
So but will it be after the loop or within the?
Within the loop is where you would use the assignment. You can also use it outside of a loop. So let's say we just got one record. And now I just want with this one record that has I found that one record that has the ID because we used a button. We hit the button for submit for approval. We now want to update the status to submit for approval. We can assign the status of submit for approval.
Exactly. So it's more like a field update, right?
Because we're not actually updating yet. We're just assigning the value to update later.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
No update, just assigning.
Yeah. Then next up, we have within the resources are items we have our resources. These are what we use inside the fields. So here is where you have a choice, a constant, a formula, you have global variables. So I'm going to show you some of these. So let's say here on our text field, here I have a couple of, actually let's use this one, it's a perfect example. So here we have our radio buttons. So here we're using accept terms and conditions and decline.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I want to do another field for privacy policy.
Right.
So let's do, I'm going to add two new radio buttons.
Right.
Oh, hold on. Let me hit cancel because I got a bunch of stuff on there. Share this again. Let's do radio buttons. All right. And this one is privacy policy.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a choice. I need to make a new resource. This text. Let me switch that to a Boolean. All right. So this one is a variable. I'm going to do accept privacy.
Right.
Policy. Actually, we need to make this a choice. Sorry. Choice. Accept private. Yeah, I can spell. Accept privacy. Policy. And this one would say, I accept the privacy policy.
Right.
Policy.
Mm-hmm.
Copy. And we're going to make this one Boolean. Make this one a true. So notice this is a global constant. So here we're using two different types of resources. One is a global constant and one is a choice.
Right.
This is true. Done.
Okay.
We want to make a second choice now.
Okay.
Let's make this one our decline. I want to make a new choice. And let's make this one decline. The privacy policy.
So choice is like a yes or a no. You have choice.
So a choice can be anything. It can be a pick list value. It could be a yes or a no. It is literally a choice. It's a value you choose.
Right. A value
Yeah.
you choose. 1 or 2, yes or no, A or B. Okay.
And then you can also have, there's even more. So for choices, in addition to having individual choices that you type out, you can use an actual pick list for your choices. And what it'll do is pull in all those pick list values. So if I go to pick list choice set.
What is record choice set then?
We're not there yet. Hold on.
Sorry.
We're grabbing the pick list first.
Sorry, teacher.
Now let's go to pick list. And so notice that all the different pick list fields from the account are on here. Correct. And I can pick which one I want to use. So this one is the account industry.
Right.
But one thing that you're going to notice here is I had set this field to a Boolean. It's not going to let me pick that field because that field is a pick list field.
So then,
and that's not a Boolean.
Yeah.
The other option, as you pointed out, was record choice set.
Right.
Record choice sets allow you to choose not from a pick list, but from a set of records. Now, one thing about pick list choices is they don't filter by record type, which you have to be very careful of. If you're working with something where you need a specific set of pick list values, because you're trying to populate on a specific record type, you need to use choice and type in each individual pick list choice value.
Right. Okay.
So keep that in mind. If you're using like the master record type, you can use just the pick list. Or if your record type has every pick list value, you can use the pick list value. Now, record choice is pretty cool. So let's say you actually have an object that you want to choose from. Like if you want to pick which user it is. So a great example of this is, that crazy flow I showed you last time, right? I'm actually going to pull that back up. Log in. I jump to demo. Where's this? Oh, I got to switch my windows 1 second.
Okay.
And I'll switch my share to my other window in just a second once I log in.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
And let me share this one. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to switch over to, so what I'll show you first is on this application here on the related. You'll notice here for the application owners, let's go to our addendums actually and do a new. Here on it's addendum A. Now addendum A, you have this common owner field.
Right.
Where you actually have a application owner that populates this. And you'll notice here when I click on it, you're picking any one of those application owners. And those are actually these records here. So let's jump over into that crazy flow. And let's do process flows. Do application flow.
You're so organized. Wow. Jesus.
So you'll notice here, we are actually using a record choice set. We're choosing from the application owners that are related to that application. We're choosing from the application owners, and then record choice sets you can filter. So I'm going to jump back over to ours now so that we can dig in and actually make one of these on our own stuff. Yeah, let's see this one.
So a record choice set basically allows you to select a particular record from a pick list.
Nope, it's not from a pick list. Yes, from a pick list. Yes, it lets you choose a record in a drop-down form. Yes. So I'm going to do record choice set. Let's grab this from the account. And here you see you can do get all records, or you can do conditions.
Yeah.
And so let's say we want to do only accounts where the billing state, the state equals Washington. So this is Washington accounts. Oh my gosh, caps lock, go away. There we go. And then down here, you're going to choose what the label is. So that you can say we display the name. You can set a maximum number of records.
Right.
Now the choice value, this is the value that you save. So if you are actually saving this in a lookup field, you're going to want to save the ID. So you'll do ID. Now let's say there is, let's say you actually want to save this in a text field though, because you're not actually saving the account. What you're really saving is the account
ID.
name somewhere else.
Right.
If you don't actually want to save this in a lookup field, you might just want to save the account name here. Because an ID wouldn't make sense if nobody could read it.
Correct. It'll just be numbers.
So, yep, exactly. And the other thing to keep in mind is with a record choice set, you can save other values. So let's say we want to save the fact that it's active. And we want to save the account number too. And you can save all of these other values, and you can save them into other variables so that you can reference them later in your flow.
So just to clarify, variable is a value, not a field.
So a variable can be a few different things. So an S object variable is a record. A variable can be a value. It could be, so yeah, technically it would be a value. It could be from a field. It could be a specific value. Like when you launch a flow off a button, you know how you can put stuff into the URL?
Correct.
So that those are the field values, and you would drop those into a variable.
Right. So every time we're creating a new resource, which is a variable, it'll be a value, right? Which we then assign it or use it in order to get values or records, right?
Right. So your resources can be variables, text templates, stages. I love that I had examples on there. Great job, Megan. Great job. Buffer choice sets. Your variables can be pretty much anything. Yeah. You can also have formulas. Now there are limits to your flow formulas too, so keep that in mind. So for example, if I go and look, some places you can't actually drop stuff. So I'm gonna hit cancel here. If I go here and I do new resource, also a constant. Constants never change throughout your flow. If you have a constant, whatever it is when you launch your flow, it's never going to change, even if you try to assign it later.
Right. So can we say a value that never changes? If it's true, then it'll be true throughout the flow.
Exactly. Yeah, you can never assign it. It can never change.
Okay, never change.
A constant is constant.
Right. Through the flow. Okay.
All right. And then your formulas. So you'll notice in your formulas, if you type in $, this is where you get additional global variables. These are the same global variables that you have inside of your org. The only one that's different is the fact that you have flow.
Yeah.
Now, right. The ones in here that really stand out are active stage and current stage. Those are used in the stage component, which isn't out of the box, but everything you need for it is out of the box. Which I find highly entertaining, personally. That they give you everything you need to do it, but they don't actually give you the component. And the stage component is like the path.
Sorry, what is it?
It's like path on opportunities.
All right. Okay, so stage is a path. Okay, good.
Yep.
Never understood that. Stage is
and it shows you what screen you're on and where you're at within the flow.
Fabulous. That's new. All right, what's next?
All right. So next thing that we have are getting close. We're getting close. Talking about components versus actions. So you have two different types of custom pieces of flow. You can do custom components and custom actions.
Right.
So a big part of flow is the fact that you can use flow for when you aren't using custom code.
Right.
Some of the reasons why you have the ability to use flow, and one of the greatest things is that you can use custom components within flow. Now, one of the great ways that this can help you is, let's say you can do pretty much everything within flow, except for the fact that they just don't have this one little piece that you need, and you just need this one type of field, or you just need this one sidebar image. They want the path to be sideways to show you where you're at.
Right.
And, not on the top. Well, you don't want to go all custom for that, but that was the way it used to have to be.
Right.
Instead, what you can do now is you can just make a custom flow component. And you have the option to make a screen component. A screen component is something on your screen that can make a small piece of your flow with code instead of having to make the whole thing with code. And so instead of coding the whole thing, you can code this one little bit and make the rest of it declarative. Now, an action is something that does an actual action. Either it generates a random number, or it gives you a redirect, or it pops up a toast at the end to say, you have completed your flow. So it is doing an actual action. So that's the big difference. Another one that you might want to have is, I mentioned here, a lookup field with criteria. So the lookup field that is within Flow out of the box is just a lookup field. You can't put any filters on it.
Correct.
Which is really frustrating. I hate the fact that you can't use any filters. Now, the unofficial SF site, or unofficial Flow, or unofficial SF Flow, whatever it is, I have a link to it on the last slide, is a website that was made by the Flow team at Salesforce.
Wow.
And what they have done is they have created a ton of custom components and a ton of custom actions that you can go and install in your org.
For free?
For free.
Wow. Treasure.
And one of them is a lookup field that lets you put criteria on so that you can pull up only active users, for example, instead of pulling up every damn user that ever existed in your org.
So basically, it's a free package. You install it in your org and they show up in the Flow, and then you can use them as a filter in a lookup field.
So they have a ton of different types of components. Another one they have is confetti for a Flow action. So you can have confetti show up at the end of your Flow. There are a bunch of different things. They also have a data table. So that you can have a table inside your Flow that shows a set of records. There's just a bunch of stuff in there. I recommend that you check out that site. Like I said, there's a link at the end of the deck. So if you want to take a look at that and take a look through their website for next week, that would be awesome.
Sure, I'll do that.
All right. So then I talked about stages already. Stages are like your path. They require a custom component.
Can't get any simpler than that. Straight into the head. Simple.
And I will actually install my path component or my stages component into the org for next week so that in a Flow that uses it, so we can take a look at it. And then a Flow interview. So Flows have something called a Flow interview.
Is that like a component or something? See that?
So an interview is a section of your Flow. So Flows have an amount, so Flows don't update immediately because Flows can have different sections. So you'll notice that, like, for example, they'll have a pause in it. Or you'll have a get record, and then you'll end up doing something, and then you've got another thing and another thing. A Flow can end up having enough stuff, and it could end up being like a 3-year Flow, depending on how big it is. You know, what if you've got a bunch of pauses in there and a bunch of other stuff? So interviews don't actually perform actions. So they end up waiting until the transaction is over. So your Flow will not send an email, post a chatter, do an approval submission, or do a quick action until that interview is complete. So you need to think when you are building your Flow about what type of items you are using within your Flow, as well as how you are building it and constructing it. And when do you need these things to be done? What was that?
So how would you access pause? So where do you see pause and interview in the Flow? Like, how do you access them? Is that like a element or logic? I don't see it.
So that's because mine is a screen Flow. Screen Flows can't have pauses. It has to be an auto launch Flow to have a pause. Yeah. So when an interview is in flight, it's not going to save. Your Flow actually has to wait until the interview is complete to do that save. And once that So we might be getting a little bit too deep with this one, but we will get more into interviews and transactions as we go. But just keep in mind about how you build, and there are just certain items and flows that you have to wait for. Quick actions, you have to be careful with using. You might want to consider using an update or a create over a quick action.
Create
emails, you have to be careful with. Chatter posts, you have to be careful with. And approval submissions. Those are the 4 big ones. So just keep those in mind.
When you say you have to be careful, do you mean be cautious when you use them?
You have to be cautious about when you use them because of the fact that they don't happen immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. That's a good one. Thank you.
They're super handy, don't get me wrong. But depending on the size of your flow, they may not be the right choice.
Right. Okay, cool.
But if your flow has pauses and waits, they may not be the right choice.
Right. Well, I'll hold my question, but I think I would love to have a judgment when to use which one. So like you rightly said,
it all depends on the situation.
Right. So just because they're available doesn't mean you can just throw them in there.
Same thing with an update or a create. Just because it's available doesn't mean it's the right choice either. It's all situational.
So in case there is a situation where you need to create it and you do have the ability to use create and update, who would you go for? Quick action or create or update? Like why would you pick quick action over create or update?
Do you have pauses? How big is the flow? How much time does it span before the flow goes from start to finish?
God, you're a legend.
How many objects are you touching?
You are a legend. You have dissected floors like left, right, and center. Oh God.
Same thing with code, though. I would ask the exact same questions.
I got it. My apologies for the question.
No, there's just a lot to consider. It's one of those things. It's like with Process Builder. I avoid Process Builder like the plague. I think it is a horrible tool, to tell you the truth.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, I love Process Builder.
It does not take into account so much. I have a customer right now who had process builders set up in their org, and they are getting about 100 errors a day for records that no longer meet criteria and records that no longer exist. Because process builders are literally flows.
Criteria based,
because their records were deleted. But nobody cleaned out the interviews. If you delete a record, but if there was a schedule, like something was supposed to happen in a week, that automation is still going to fire.
I think you've kind of given me an idea, because in my org also there is an error that's keep coming, but you've sort of kind of given me a hint probably. But
their situation is technically a birthday email. So their records, they're just hitting their 1-year mark in their org. And so what happened is their leads were converted. And so they're getting these errors on leads for leads that are now opportunities. But nobody took into account when they built these process builders on their leads that their leads would convert. So they now have all these process builder errors for leads that are opportunities, but the leads are now accounts and contacts and opportunities.
Wow. How do you go back in time and sort of fix it then? Like, what's the fix
Just
for?
go in and delete all the interviews that exist on the flow page, even though they don't have any flows.
But what? If they don't have a flow, then how do you delete them?
Because they have process builders. Process builders are flows.
Ah.
They're the exact same thing as a flow, but with just a different UI. They're the same type of metadata.
Easy.
Yeah. It's actually a process builder with a scheduled email that fires once a year to send a happy birthday email.
Look what's happy birthday doing.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, we gotta go clean these up, but we've got to make sure that we get only the ones that are converted and leave all the other lead interviews so that those exist. But we've also got to fix it so that they get self-deleted once the leads are converted. It's a good time.
So good with this stuff. I wish I could just take your brain, put it, make some potion out of it and drink it. God, I'll be ruling the world in my office.
It gets there. You'll get there. You'll get there.
Oh, get your magic wand.
So when you're working with screen flows, you're working with a screen flow, make sure that they only run in Lightning runtime. So they will not run on a web tab. And if you launch them from a list button, they won't run on a list button that is set to display in the existing window with or without a sidebar.
Right.
They also won't run in Classic.
Oh no, definitely not.
And then one of the weird things is number fields can have 18 characters. Flow number fields can only have 17 characters.
Wow.
So just be careful with that one.
Lightning screen.
And then I've just got a bunch of best practices here. Always use a sandbox. Think clicks before code. It's always best to consider clicks. Even if you don't end up going with clicks before code, think clicks before code. And then plan before you build. I don't care if you're using a process builder or if you're building a flow. I like to draw them out before I build them.
Right.
Personally, I don't like to waste time doing it in Lucidchart. I find it takes me more time to do it in Lucidchart than it does on pen and paper. But I will sketch my flows out on pen and paper. And I don't like to do it just once. I try a bunch of different ways to do it before I actually do it. Just because you figured out a way to do it the first time doesn't mean that's the right way to go. I'll draw out a few different ways. And see, and then evaluate which one is probably the better way to go. Think about your order of execution. When do validation rules fire versus when do workflow rules fire versus when does your flow fire?
I have never been this thoughtful, but after speaking to you and listening to your thought process, I'm just blown away with the fact that how much detailed you are. Your drawing processes flows in a multiple ways to figure out what's the best one. That's my main takeaway.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't just do it. I don't just go with my stuff. I'll grab somebody from my team. I'll grab somebody from one of the other teams. I don't care if it's, somebody on my team, the architecture team, or I'll grab somebody from the declarative team, or I'll grab somebody from the dev team. But I will run through and I will either take a photo of what I drew out, and I will send it over to them and I'll get their thoughts. And make it a quote unquote design review board. I'll even grab somebody that's one of my friends from the community to run through with it and get their input. And you've got to be open to other people's opinions, it's not that you did it wrong when they give you feedback. It's just that they've had a different experience.
Correct.
And if you can't take feedback from other people, it's gonna break you. It's so important. They've had a different experience. They've had a different background. It's just the sharing of ideas, and it is crucial. I love talking about stuff with my boss. I call him Mr. Jim Ray.
Wow.
His daughter is Miss Bella. I think she's adorable. And
You're amazing, Megan. There's so much to learn from you, even being as a human being, as a professional. Wow. I am so honored to just listen to you, that you won't grow if you just keep thinking you're the best in your own head.
Yeah.
Wow. Mind blowing.
Just part of life.
Definitely mind blowing. Hey, I'm happy that we've covered. I've learned so much. I'm going through that document. I don't see the link to the flow trailhead that you wanted me to do.
I will go for you right here. Let's grab that.
I'm going it over and over, and I don't see that unofficial thing that you talked about.
So unofficial flow is this one right here. The last one on the slide. Yeah. Unofficial flow site.
And actually, where is the resources? Gone. What? It says uploaded content removed. It says it's no longer available.
That works. I just opened it.
No, I mean the link to this presentation.
Oh, here, let's reshare it. Let's share it this way.
It's no longer available. It's removed.
It's there for. There you are. Let's just share it that way.
Okay.
Boom, sent. Now you should have shared that way.
All right.
Awesome. Let me grab this one. Here we go. And I'm going to grab this and drop it onto our document. All right. This and do. I know we went a little bit over. I'm sorry, dear. I just
No, I don't apologize. I'm thankful for what you're doing outside your work hours, and I just have gratitude. So please don't ever apologize to me. You are doing me a great favor by teaching me. So, and I've learned so much. Those things he covers, they're not in Trailhead. With the amount of detail you've covered, nobody will do it. So I'm just honored to have met you, to the fact that you're teaching me, and to learn about you as a human and your professional thoughts. It's definitely going to help me at my workplace as well. Because a lot of time I would just, shut an idea down because I know better. But no, you drag everybody around. Like, let me know your thoughts. Yes. So thank you for sharing that. That's experience, and no one tells you that. So I am happy that you're sharing those really critical, imperative experiences with me. That's going to help me get better as a human and look better as a professional, which people don't. Those are secrets.
I have just learned so much from other people in the community, and I mean, even helping other people. There's not a single time that when I help somebody else that I don't learn as well. So I mean, I just love opening up my mind and being open to learning from others.
No, you're awesome. So thank you so much. So I'm going to do the class next week.
Okay.
The same time.
Okay. Perfect. The Tuesday time or the Wednesday time?
You tell me. Wednesday
you
works.
Want to do the Tuesday one or the Wednesday
one?
I'm good with either.
Your Tuesday will be my Wednesday.
Perfect. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd like to. Yeah, we can do it like. What time we started? 11:30.
5:30 or 6:30. Which one do you want to do? The same time or the earlier time?
however, it's whatever
Okay.
you're comfortable with.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll do my homework and we
Awesome.
will review, and then we can start learning we will learn the next week, whatever flow you have in mind. And
Awesome.